Hi guys, Sam here. One of the things I often get asked about is the value of digital inking with an active pen and OneNote versus typing. And so I've started doing a little bit of a demonstration to show some of the value of that and wrap it around this idea of the SAMR model. All right, so it's a really easy four-stage taxonomy, substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. And I think OneNote and digital inking, when working collaboratively and co-authoring with a classmate, sits squarely in that augmentation where tech acts as a direct tool substitute, so it's pen and paper, but it's digital, with functional improvement. And I want to show you some of that functional improvement and what it would kind of look like today. So one of the things that is a really cool and easy way to start to demonstrate this is to ask a big question. And a question that a lot of people resonate with is, why did the Titanic sink? Okay, so this is something that you could ask a question of with a number of different people, a number of different age groups that are going to sit in there. And invariably, as you ask the question, you're going to start to get a whole range of different answers, all right? But the first one that most often comes back is, well, duh, it hit an iceberg. So let's put this one in here. It hit an iceberg. And that's a sensible sort of response. And as you start to dig a little bit deeper, you might get responses like, it was going too fast. It was going too fast. All right. Then as people start to think a little bit deeper, you might get responses, things like weather conditions. All right. Weather conditions. They somehow played a part in what the problem was here as well. There's also maybe allegations that it was trying to break a record, a speed record of crossing the Atlantic. So we can throw that one in there too, trying to break a record. As we start to think a little bit deeper though, sometimes things come out like company pride, right? That there was some element of hubris or pride that was trying to set this record, that they were the unsinkable boat, and this somehow contributed to the sinking of the Titanic. Others start to go towards flawed design, flawed safety or design. And if you're co-authoring with a student group here, you can start to get these ideas coming down really quickly. You might have captain's negligence could come into play, and maybe a couple of final ones there. Delays, asking for help. There we go. All right, now if we have a list like this is kind of similar to what we would have on a piece of pen and paper, but what we can do in OneNote, which is really handy, is that we can start to select these, we can move them around a little bit as well, which is helpful. If we wanted to start to restructure our ideas, we can make them bigger and smaller. So we might grab our idea up here and start to drop that into the middle so we can surround our other ideas around it and have a think about where they might go, perhaps if we're going to start prioritizing or ranking what's going on. And I've left my weather conditions up there as well. So I might need to put that back down there. All right, so we can easily change things as we need to. But the point is that with digital inking, a lot of studies have shown that for students that sketch, diagram, enumerate answers with pen or digital inking, their test scores can be 25 to 36% higher than if they were simply typing. So if we start to think about this, we have a list here which is pretty cool, but what if we started to diagram here? All right, so let's think about that first idea. It hit an iceberg. So if we grab this one here, it hit an iceberg, and we move it down here, and then why don't we actually draw a boat? Now I'm not a great artist by any stretch of the imagination, so you're going to need to bear with me here. Okay, perhaps the most identifiable thing about the Titanic was that it had four chimney stacks across the top, and we're going to think that maybe there was some water line here, something like this. All right, and then let's draw in that iceberg that might look something like this, hidden iceberg. All right, so that's an idea there that hits an iceberg, and we're starting to visualize what is going on here. Now, that's well and good, but as we start to do a little bit more study, we might realize that actually it wasn't quite like this, all right, that we were able to learn more information, that the iceberg actually sits below, 90% of it sits below the water. So we might have to re-sketch that now as we know more information. So we draw a new boat. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we put the waterline in. And our iceberg should actually look something a bit more like this. All right, where this is 90% of the water is below the waterline. Cool, so our knowledge is evolving, and this is being recorded diagrammatically. Now, the other thing that we have drawn here is a big iceberg. All right, and initially we have put the waterline looking like this. All right, which is suggesting that there are some waves and so forth. But actually, if this was the case, then we would start to see some splashes around here. All right, waves. And that actually would have contributed to them spotting the iceberg a whole lot further out. Realistically, the water was probably something like more like that. Pretty much close to dead flat. This caused the problems that there were no waves. All right, so if we put here, no waves, as C was flat. All right, so we're starting to see our knowledge evolve. All right, if we came down here and we went back to a nice red pen, our knowledge initially was sitting here, that we knew it had an iceberg. But as our knowledge evolved, it actually jumped to the iceberg with 90% below with the water. And then we realized some of our initial knowledge that the water was probably, drawn typically with waves is actually incorrect. All right? And only by further study did we find out the weather conditions were in fact not really working in the favor of the crew on the Titanic. So we can actually say over here that the weather conditions played a pretty significant role, as we make that bigger, in the reason why the Titanic actually sunk. Okay, the other thing that we could start to do is maybe explore this idea that there was some sort of, it was going too fast, it was trying to break a record. So if we come back over here, now we need to do a bit more research, find out if this was in fact true. Maybe, maybe not. So if we grab this one here and we bring it down here, what we might try to do, and a better illustrator than myself would have probably more success here, is that you could draw a really rough sort of idea of New York City, of America, North America there, and you could draw, there's Ireland where it left from, there's Great Britain, there's kind of the Spanish Peninsula going down there. So there's this idea that they were racing to go from Ireland to New York City. There we go, race. So we're starting to build out our knowledge here that this was actually a contributing factor to why they went on and potentially hit an iceberg as well. How much of a contributing factor is, you need to evaluate that. All right, and then maybe the last thing you want to do here is actually record a little bit of a timeline of what's actually taken place here. So you might do something like this. All right, so we know that it was tracking along here. We had an episode at 11:40. Hit iceberg. All right, and actually by 11:50 it's flooding. There's 14 feet of water in the boat already. 12 a.m. the captain is told, and that the boat only has 2 hours or so to remain afloat. So it comes along a little bit further. 12:25, boats are launched. And by 2:05, the last boat leaves. Last boat leaves. Timeline, we have 2:20 it's sunk. All right, so we're starting to visualize our learning even further. All right, now if you really wanted to cap this off, you could jump back into your browser. You could find a nice little YouTube clip like this one here, and you could copy that, come back into OneNote, and you could actually choose a place in your OneNote where you want to drop that in there. So there is our YouTube clip. We can play that directly from within the OneNote as well if we wanted to. So we hit play, it starts to queue up, and it will actually play the YouTube clip directly within. So we can drag it forward. So you get an idea of what you can do. So really quickly, we have created a visualization of what has actually happened. We've shown the progression of our knowledge in OneNote. This could be all co-authored by students. And we come back to our key question, why did the Titanic sink? Well, was it simply because it hit an iceberg? Or was it actually because the weather conditions played a contributing part into this? Was it because they were trying to have a race across the Atlantic to achieve a record? Maybe the captain spent too long waiting to actually send a signal. Whatever it was, we've formulated some pretty cool ideas. We've added in video animation from YouTube directly into our OneNote, and I would compare it simply to maybe if we looked at a traditional way this might have been done, we created a boring old list by typing out 1 to 9. I think when it comes to recollection and evidence of knowledge progression, we start to see the value of digital inking and OneNote at work here. So hopefully that gives you a few ideas, guys, around the SAMR model, how your knowledge goes a little bit deeper as you start to use digital inking and sketching of your ideas and your knowledge progression within OneNote. Have a great day.